everybody. Welcome back to our second attempt at a detailed diatribe. This week's subject is about a show that is near and dear to my heart that Blue has not watched, except for 2 episodes that I made him watch last week.
I am 2 episodes deep in the middle of the 4th season, and I am so excited to talk about this.
Hell yeah. And that show is She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, the 2018 remake of a 1985 He-Man spinoff that was designed entirely to sell toys and appeal to the girls that were already watching He-Man for some reason. So it doesn't have much in common with the original show beyond the character names and the basic structure of the plot, among other things. She-Ra 2018 cannot mention He-Man or any of He-Man's affiliated characters because they are a different set of licenses that were already acquired by other studios to do, I think, 2 concurrent remakes of He-Man that are coming out this year. It's hilarious.
Corporate media conglomerates are a whole mess. But
it's so funny.
Fundamentally, since this is a whole new show from the original, what fundamentally, Red, is the premise of She-Ra, and how does that tie into what we're talking about today?
Right, okay. The fundamental, basic premise of She-Ra is that the heroine of the show, Adora, who everybody loves, is, just your ordinary cadet in the Evil Horde, known in the 2018 reboot only as the Horde, but referred to unilaterally as the Evil Horde in the original, according to my dad. When one day she discovers that the Horde is actually evil, and she is a legendary chosen princess with a magical sword who can turn into an 8-foot-tall sword lady with really great hair called She-Ra. And then she defects from Team Bad Guy to join the heroic Rebellion Princess Alliance and helps them defeat the Evil Horde. This is the basic premise of the show. Does not have very much to do with the specific detail I want to focus on today, which is a set of parallel character arcs in Season 4, where a major villain and a major hero undergo identical character arcs, where they both gain a lot of power at the very beginning of the season, systematically drive away everyone close to them, end up completely alone, and then have a confrontation with each other and end up alone together on the greater scope villain's flagship when he invades the planet at the very end of the season with nobody to rely on but each other. It is fascinating, and it's only more interesting than the way I described it because that's like the top-down perspective. These 2 characters do not look like characters that should have parallel arcs, and I'm fascinated by how they wrote that so cleanly. So that's the detail I would like to focus on today. But to get into the weeds with that, I need to start contextualizing things, which is a rabbit hole that doesn't end. So, Blue, I'm relying on you to repress that power on this.
The episodes that I watched were episodes 4 and 6, which was Pulse and then Princess Scorpia.
Yep.
The general plotline of what was happening in Pulse involved one of the 2 characters. What's her name?
I should probably explain just the basics of which of these 2 characters are. I'm so sorry. The characters involved are Princess Glimmer, the current leader of the rebellion, and Catra, Adora's best friend in the Horde, who took her defecting extremely personally and has since then been climbing in the villain ranks. At the end of Season 3, she triggers an apocalypse. Glimmer's mother sacrifices herself to stop it, and Glimmer becomes queen, and Catra gives herself a promotion to basically the boss of the bad guys at roughly the same time. In the first episode of Season 4, Glimmer becomes queen. Catra essentially takes over the Horde, gets a sweet redesign. They both get redesigns. It's a whole thing. And basically, both of these characters have the distinction of being, at one point or another, Adora's best friend in the world. Glimmer is her current best friend on account of them both being good guys. Catra is her former best friend / deeply repressed love interest. That won't come into play until Season 5, but it's a whole thing that informs her arc.
We don't have time to unpack all of that.
We don't have time to unpack all of that. No. So basically, the general arc of Season 4 is the same arc it's been. The Horde and the Alliance, the Rebel Alliance, are fighting each other. And it's a war, you know, there's give and take. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. And I forgot, the main villain of the first 4 seasons is this dude, Hordak, who rules the Evil Horde. The names are from the original. It's not their fault that they're very on the nose. And at the end of Season 3, he sent out a signal to essentially call his quote-unquote big brother Horde Prime, who's the even worse Evil Horde guy, even scarier. He's like Palpatine, but with a leitmotif. And he's kind of looming over Season 4 as the greater scope threat that's coming their way. And the premise of the very beginning of the season is that Catra tells Hordak, listen, you've been at this stupid war for ages. if you want Big Brother to be impressed when he gets there, you should probably conquer this planet before he gets here, and you're gonna need my tactical know-how to do that because you suck at this, dude. And somehow he's like, yeah, okay, you know what? I've had a pretty rough run. Let's do it. So she's actually making some serious headway this season, and Glimmer has just taken over the Alliance, fighting her, and isn't doing such a good job, to be completely honest, for various reasons I'll get into later. But I think that's...
One of the things that I noticed, specifically in regards to Catra, is that, I mean, obviously they're bad guys. They're not the nicest of people, but Catra has a distinct habit of being very blunt,
Yep.
and very unforgiving when people don't do exactly what she wants or needs them to, or when someone does something that she perceives as weak or pointless. So to your example of what she was telling Hordak in the beginning of the season, in the episode that I watched earlier today, Princess Scorpia, she gets really mad at Scorpia for not doing exactly what she wants, and then proceeds to get really mad at Hordak for needing her to have done this thing that she needed Scorpia to deal with. So she has a very aggressive outward personality that goes a long way towards alienating a lot of people in a very short span of time.
Yep.
But Glimmer obviously doesn't have that same personality, and yet still manages to accomplish the same thing. How does that one play out?
Well, it's very interesting. I've seen it described, I think by one of the showrunners, that Glimmer on the outside is perfectly good, and on the inside has some bad stuff. Catra on the outside is perfectly bad, and on the inside has some good stuff. And essentially there's a certain conflict between that. So like, for the first 3 seasons, Glimmer is the archetypical rebellious princess. Like, her mom is constantly grounding her for running off and doing heroic things. That's kind of the core gameplay loop of their dynamic. The problem is, without her mom, she doesn't have anyone who can send her to her room, but she never loses the attitude that she is like the rebellious underdog who everyone is like, she knows what's best if they just let her do it. The problem is, if you combine that with absolute power and queenhood, you get someone who does a lot of stuff that she thinks is the right thing to do. She never does anything she thinks is bad, and that is the difference between her and Catra. Catra does things she thinks is bad, but Glimmer will be convinced at all times that she's doing the right thing, but she's frequently wrong. And without anyone with authority over her who can actually tell her, no, you're wrong, you can't do that, she doesn't really ever change her mind. And even then, she didn't change her mind, she just sulked about it. She doesn't really have the emotional maturity to handle being queen, but she doesn't really have a choice. And she doesn't take the authority very well. And because of that, her dynamic with the best friend squad, Adora and Bo, the other member of the trio, he's kind of the chill mediator of the group. They've basically been the best friend squad for the past 3 seasons, but now that she's queen, the dynamic has shifted, and none of them really know what to do about it. Like, she spends several episodes very frustrated that she has to stay back in the palace and do boring queen stuff while they're off having fun adventures and nearly getting killed by robots. And so that's already not the best way to be looking at a war, you could say. And after, I guess, the first couple episodes, where she's like, oh, I'm just stuck here. She's like, wait a minute, I'm the queen. They can't tell me what to do, which is, such a good reason to... So she goes on the front lines and actually does help. She's gotten significantly more powerful, so she's kind of a heavy hitter, and she can teleport, which is very useful.
Yeah, she has some pretty powerful magic.
Yeah, she's nothing to sneeze at. In the earlier seasons, basically her only weakness was that she had to recharge her powers like a battery. So if the plot needed to happen and teleportation would make the plot not happen, she would be out of power because she kept forgetting to recharge. It was a whole thing. But she doesn't need to do that anymore because her mom is gone. Hooray! So basically, she's always been kind of stubborn and abrasive, but now she can also pull rank, and she doesn't think anyone should have the authority to tell her what to do, which is not great.
One of the things that I saw happening was She-Ra, or Adora in particular, and then also the rest of the fun rebel squad, was operating in this very weird space of, wait, you're the queen, you're really important, we can't let you get hurt. So even though she has a significant degree of authority, being queen, her friends were basically acting as this golden cage to protect you, or, protect you, because we need to make sure that you stay safe and nothing bad can ever happen. And that is something that Glimmer found very abrasive in the episodes that I watched.
Yeah, definitely.
And I can definitely see how, when you extrapolate that, it can lead to a feeling of growing frustration and eventually screw this, I'm out with your former best friend squad.
Yeah, Glimmer definitely has kind of a gilded cage situation, and I don't think she ever directly draws this parallel, but it is kind of similar to the way her mother treated her in the first 3 seasons. She was very protective and very concerned. Among other things, Glimmer's father, King Micah, was very similar to her. He was like a frontline fighter, a very powerful sorcerer, and he was quote-unquote killed by the Horde when she was just a baby, and ever since then her mother's been very like, no, you are going to stay here, you are going to stop going into danger and nearly getting killed. Surprise twist, King Micah is alive and shows up in season 5, and he's very, very cool. One of my favorite characters. But basically, as far as anybody knows, he did exactly what she does and got killed. So it makes sense that her mother would be so protective. But when her mother's gone, the best friend squad is also protective. She is the queen and leads the rebellion. She is kind of, from their perspective at least, more important than they are. But she doesn't really like that they're being so protective and treating her like she's weak, which is of course not the problem. The idea is not, oh, you can't defend yourself. It's, we can't afford to let you get in trouble or hurt. So It's coming from a place of love, but there's a fundamental miscommunication going on, where basically none of them can exactly communicate why this is upsetting them so much. And it kind of spirals out of control because of that. Glimmer does not like feeling condescended to, and that makes her want to pull rank and remind people that she's tough and strong and they can't tell her to go to her room. And that is not why Adora is being so protective. It's entirely like, no, you're my friend and I don't want you to get hurt, and also you're the queen and you shouldn't be out here punching, like, random minions in the faceplate. What are you doing? So that's essentially the problem on the Best Friend Squad side. Team Best Friend, like, they haven't really been able to settle into a new arrangement that works. Adora is kind of thrown because she's like, okay, Glimmer, this must have been incredibly hard for you. I'm so sorry. Your mother's last words were for me to take care of you. Well, actually, they were for us to take care of each other, but I have internalized this as I must take care of everybody because of my huge hero complex. It's a whole thing. So I need to keep everybody safe, and I need to solve this for you. I need to be the best hero I can be so I can win this war for you. And Glimmer's like, I don't need you to do everything for me, except there's a facet to that. There's a caveat that I want to get into later. But the short of it is that both Catra and Glimmer have developed a habit of blaming Adora for everything that goes wrong in their lives and everything bad that they do because she didn't stop them. It's fascinating. And meanwhile, Bo is just like, guys, we're all friends here. Why are you yelling? I don't understand what's happening. He actually has a bit of a crisis in a later episode where he's like, guys, it's actually not that easy being friendly and upbeat all the time when you guys are just so miserable all the time, all right? It's completely thankless being friends with friends, which is deeply hilarious and also tragic. Yeah. So Glimmer's side of things is kind of fascinating. She's fundamentally very afraid of being alone. This is a through line in her character in the first several seasons. She was a very sheltered kid. Bo was kind of her only friend. When Adora shows up, she's initially kind of like, no, get away. You're a bad guy. You're a Horde soldier. And then she's like, actually, you're my best friend and I never want to let you go. Actually, that's a Catra parallel too. Didn't even notice that one before this season. She kind of gets over that. She gets a bigger friend group. She gets better about this stuff. The problem is, season 4, she has enough friends that that's not a problem anymore, but enough authority that her friends can't really tell her, hey, this is maybe a bad idea, without her interpreting it as, oh, you think I'm a bad leader? You think I'm weak? You think I can't do this? Which is not at all the sentiment they are attempting to express. But she has a tendency to interpret things as though she's being attacked, even when they're coming from places of love. And again, that's a through line from the first few seasons with her mother and all that stuff. And it ends up essentially producing this fundamental just clash between her character and all of her friends and loved ones who are trying to support her, because she interprets their compassion as like condescension, and it just makes her lash out at them, which is fascinating. And it comes to a head in a later episode in a parallel with the way that Catra's arc comes to a head, and we should probably talk about her a little bit. Catra's whole thing is very layered. Fundamentally, for most of the show, she has no idea what she actually wants. She thinks she wants to take over the world because she's really, really mad at Adora, and Adora doesn't want her to do that. That's not the best motivation to conquer and subjugate an entire planet, but she's not ready to confront her actual feelings, so that's what she does instead. Catra has basically just textbook abandonment issues. She's got a lot of problems, from being second best to Adora at all times while also being deeply, deeply in love with Adora, so it's difficult for her to really sublimate those in one simple direction. Throughout season 4, she's got new authority, new power, and her already extant abrasiveness leads her to essentially drive away everybody she had left, with a tipping point at the end of season 3 where one of her two closest friends, Princess and Trapta, basically figures out that the thing that she's built is going to destroy the world, and she's like, we can't activate this, I've got to go tell Hordak, and Catra tases her and ships her off to Beast Island, the island where nobody comes back from, so that she won't do that, and they can activate the portal instead. And this racks her with guilt for the entire rest of the season, because she shouldn't have done that. It was a very bad traitory thing to do, to betray somebody who clearly thought of her as a friend, and who she thought of as a friend, even though she can't really admit that to herself. And throughout the season, she spirals and pushes everybody away because she's getting stressed and freaked out, and she thinks everybody's against her. And when she ends up alone, unlike Glimmer, she recognizes that this is a problem. She doesn't know how to fix it, but she is very aware that it's bad. And that is a fascinating point of contrast to me.
Yeah, that's really cool to consider how the character who has a much more outwardly aggressive position on everything is much faster to realize, oh wait, perhaps I've made a mistake.
Yeah.
And I guess at least in the episodes that I saw, some of that is given to her directly, where the character Princess Scorpia,
yes, my girl,
who says, I was trying to do this thing for you, I'm sorry I couldn't do it, and then Catra just screams and wails and yells at her about how terrible of a job she did. Scorpius just says, you're a bad friend, and walks away. So that seed is planted for Catra in a way that I don't think is done for Queen Glimmer,
yeah,
I suppose.
So
there's
a
difference in how the friends interact, where Catra had the benefit of a friend telling her to her face, no, you're doing this wrong, whereas Glimmer only had, I want to protect you, I want to take care of you, I have to put you in this cage, and she just interprets that negatively, and she never got that reinforcement of what is it that I'm doing wrong in a way that Catra actually did, even if she didn't act on it immediately.
I'm going through my episodic notes because there's actually one bit where one really excellent point of contrast. In, I believe, yes, episode 8. So basically, Catra has a tipping point when she drives Scorpia away. Scorpia, for context, is my favorite character in this show. She's a very, very loyal, sweet, I described her on Twitter at one point as a she-himbo and got a lot of actuallys in the comments, but I'm standing by that, all right? She's a himbo who happens to be a lady. Basically, she has been Catra's, loyal bestie since, episode 2 or something. Basically, after Adora leaves, Scorpia's like, hey, what's up, best friend? I'm here to do some great Horde stuff and give amazing hugs, and I'm super fun. And she's also kind of clearly got a crush on Catra. It's very funny. At the end of season 3, when Catra does the aforementioned tasing and shipping off of Entrapta, Scorpia tries to stop her, or at least she protests, and Catra turns on her and says, you want to be next? And Scorpia doesn't say anything. And essentially, she spends the first half of season 4 trying to internally justify this, of okay, she was under a lot of pressure, maybe she didn't have a choice, she didn't mean that, and then after a while she's like, no, she did mean that. She betrayed Entrapta and me, and I let it happen, and I have to fix this. And then she basically goes to Catra. She's, it's not a secret test of character. Scorpia does not do those kinds of things. But essentially, she's like, okay, Catra said she wanted this thing from me. I can't get it to her without disassembling this robot buddy that I really like. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell her I tried and I failed. And she'll be cool with it because we're friends. And instead, as mentioned, Catra blows up at her and yells about how she's useless and the worst and annoying and never does anything right. And instead of laughing it off and being like, hey, yeah, whatever you say, best buddy, we're cool, Scorpia gets very quiet, and then she says, you're a bad friend, turns and walks away. Catra immediately assumes that she's just going off to sulk and she'll be fine. Scorpia has actually left and, defects to Team Good Guys so she can get them to save Entrapta. And Catra, when she realizes that, has a full-on emotional breakdown. It is a incredibly well done episode. There's one shot I want to highlight where basically she's been checking the security footage for Scorpia all day, or possibly longer. It looks like she hasn't slept in a very long time. Hordak checks in, and it's kind of close-in shot on her face, and he's like, what's the sitch? And she's like, everything's going great, and it's totally under control. And he's like, cool, and he goes back to blowing stuff up, and the feed shuts off, and it pans out. The room is completely destroyed. She's clawed everything up, smashed every other monitor, and she sort of slowly takes off her little headpiece, crumples to the floor, and starts weeping. It's just, everything's under control to that is just, it's incredible. It's such good animation and acting, too. So driving Scorpio away is not good for her. Glimmer does something very similar in episode 8, and she actually realizes, and it highlights a very interesting difference in their character, Glimmer cannot ever admit that she did anything wrong. So in episode 8, she and Adora are having an argument. This has become a more frequent thing. They've been arguing about tactical decisions and how if they just let Glimmer run off on her own, maybe they would have been able to stop this thing from happening. And Glimmer pushes back and basically says that this is Adora's fault, or She-Ra's fault, for not having saved them all. She was supposed to be the hero that would save them all, and she didn't. And Adora says, I'm trying my best, why can't you see that? And Glimmer says, well, maybe your best isn't good enough. If it was, my mother would still be here. And
yikes.
yeah. And Adora gasps and tears up immediately. And Glimmer, visibly reacts. She sees, oh, I went way too far. But before she can say, I'm so sorry, they get cut off by plot stuff and they have to go off and rescue the boys. It's a whole thing. And during that fight, Glimmer, there's a musical number in the background about how great friendship is. And every time where it looks like they're supposed to smile at each other and make up, Glimmer smiles at Adora, and Adora just looks incredibly sad and hurt at her and doesn't smile back. And whenever she doesn't smile back at Glimmer's attempt to smile and make nice, Glimmer gets angry because she can't bring herself to apologize. She can't bring herself to internally admit that she went way too far and that she's blaming Adora for things that Adora cannot possibly be held responsible for. Because it can't be that Glimmer's doing anything wrong or that things are just bad. No, there has to be somebody she can blame, and it can never be her. And this sort of starts her spiraling into self-righteousness. Rather than Catra, who at this point recognizes that things are really bad and she's in pain, but she has to hold it together, Glimmer's like, well, fine, if she won't accept my sad little half smile at her as a complete apology, then she doesn't get my apology. Which is, not the way to handle conflict resolution. And meanwhile, from Adora's perspective, she's not being mean or anything. She's just oh, okay, I didn't realize Glimmer hated me. All right, okay, that's not good, but I can still fix everything for her, even if we'll never be friends again. And it's ooh, that's how the hero complex interprets that, I see. So, just, so fascinating. In both of these cases, this character pushes a character to a breaking point neither of them realized they had, and has no idea what to do afterwards, which is such good theming. I love it.
Yeah, that's really well done.
Yeah.
I watched the 2 episodes. I don't have full context on this, but it is really cool that you can get a character to fundamentally the same point by pushing in essentially completely opposite directions.
Yeah.
That's just fundamentally as a writing trick is very cool. And then to do it in the same season, obviously, works in parallels and all that stuff. But gosh, that's really, really well done.
Right.
To play on the specific dynamics that each character has around them and the relationships between Catra, Scorpia, and Entrapta and Hordak, and then Adora, Bo, Glimmer, and the rest of the hero squad, that it's a completely different set of dynamics and relationships and assumptions about the self and about everybody else. And yet, it still results in the characters pushing everybody else away. That's so well done.
It's so well done that Glimmer has this fundamental self-righteousness where she is always the hero and the underdog that essentially disconnects her from the reality of, yeah, you're on the side of good, but you're the queen, you gotta start being careful about this stuff. She's sort of simultaneously why won't anyone listen to me? And no, I don't need to listen to anybody. I know what's best. It's, well, those aren't contradictory. Those are essentially, I'm always right, everyone should just do what I say. Which is, not, it's an understandable perspective for her to have, not the healthiest. And meanwhile, Catra doesn't actually think of herself as right a lot of the time. She's just this bundle of self-loathing and issues and stuff, but she doesn't really know any other way to be. And it's clear that she doesn't really like this about herself. She sort of puts on this bravado around people, where it's I totally did that on purpose, and I'd do it again. But internally, she's oh God, which is just
Catra has, it seems, a lot of artifice around how she portrays herself to everybody else, which is something that Glimmer seems to lack. And obviously, with Catra, it's very much it's a self-defense mechanism I'll act so cool, whereas Glimmer genuinely thinks that she is always right and can do no wrong, and then when things go wrong, there's no way to reconcile that, whereas Catra understands that she's doing bad things and making mistakes and messing up, but she just doesn't portray that outwardly.
Yeah, it's actually there's a little moment late in the season after Catra has driven Scorpia away and has essentially processed that she's actually gone and had her little breakdown. She clearly realizes that there's a problem and that her being alone is bad for her, because she kind of tries very slightly to mend fences in one direction. There's this trio of just like random horde cadets, Lonnie, Kyle, and Rogelio, who's a lizard man, it's very funny, who essentially were 3 out of 5 of the members of the squad that also had Catra and Adora in it. So when Adora defected and Catra got a promotion, those 3 just kind of ended up in the background doing horde stuff. But they were friends, like they grew up together. And Catra's kind of been running them into the ground all season because she's got this big plan and she needs everybody working double time because if this plan doesn't work, then all of her self-loathing tendencies will have been confirmed. It's not great. They're upset with her, or they're in denial about how she's using them and she's clearly not their friend anymore. And there's this bit where she's just kind of waiting in the little like locker room area, and those 3 come in, and the minute they see her, they go to turn around and she's like, wait! And then the minute they turn back, she kind of masks back on and she's like, what's your field report? But she's clearly like, she wants people in her life, but she can't seem to stop herself from lashing out and driving them away, because that's immediately what happens. Like, they're sort of like, oh, she wants to be friends. Okay, yeah, let's tell her what happened. Oh, it was awesome. There's like, pew, kicks and stuff. And then one of them, I believe it is Kyle, accidentally tears a drawing that Scorpia had done and put on her locker. And he shouldn't have done that. Catra gets very upset and pulls rank, and it almost escalates into a full-on fight between her and Lonnie. And I think the part in that scene where I was like, oh, is that when it looks like they're gonna fight, like Kyle, who is the team wimpy punchline, intercedes, like he puts his body between them and is like, why are you being so mean? I don't understand what's happening. And it like shakes her enough that she just orders them out. And it's another point of contrast that I think is so fascinating, because it again illustrates how much these 2 are foils, that Catra knows there's a problem but can't bring herself to fix it. Glimmer cannot bring herself to acknowledge that there is a problem with her. The problem has to be with everybody else. I think in that scene, actually, Catra specifically says, just leave like everyone else, just to put it really on the nose. Yeah. So good. And at the very end of the season, that specific point of contrast gets highlighted again. Catra's recognition that she's at rock bottom, Glimmer's inability to notice it. The exact context doesn't really matter. Stuff has happened. Things are coming to a head. There's a planet-sized superweapon that bad things are happening with. Catra and Glimmer are facing off alone, or they would be, except Catra has just had a knockdown, drag-out fight with Hordak for various reasons, and is basically just like chilling in a pile of rubble, completely dead inside. And Glimmer shows up and she's like, haha, looks like your forces have been routed, you're all alone. And Catra says, what are you waiting for? Do it. And Glimmer's not expecting her to say that. And then Catra says, looks like we're both alone, Sparkles. And that's when Glimmer kind of noticed, like, yeah, I did just come here only with Scorpia, who I then sent off, so it really is just me and you in this giant empty base. And, I wonder if this is a metaphor for, no, it's totally fine. She doesn't figure out that she did anything wrong.
You can see the gears turning behind her eyes.
Exactly. Glimmer, to her credit, does realize that she was wrong basically at the last possible moment she could. The B plot of the season is that when Adora's like, all right, Glimmer hates me, but I'm gonna do this right. I'm gonna fix things for her. She goes and tries to find this weapon that the previous She-Ra mentioned in a recording, some kind of ancient super weapon. She ends up finding out that this ancient super weapon is actually basically a planet-sized bomb used for killing other planets. Using it might blow up their planet, and using it successfully will just blow up other planets. So they can't really use it to win one war on one planet, so totally unusable. And basically she tells Glimmer that. She's like, we can't use the Heart of Etheria, it's way too dangerous, and the AI that's been training me has been reprogrammed to set it off at all costs, so we can't use it and we can't trust her. And Glimmer's like, but it's a giant ball of magic. If we siphoned off power from it, we'd be supercharged. I should talk to your AI teacher, who I can totally trust, and she'll tell me how to do that. And it's like, no, you shouldn't do that. It's a bad idea. That's actually another tipping point in her character. Basically, she's arguing with Adora and Bo over this. They're like, no, you don't understand. We really can't use this. We really, really can't. And she's like, Bo, you understand what I'm saying, right? You should explain it to her. And he's like, no, I was there too. I think Adora's right and you're wrong. And he shouldn't have said that. She pulls rank and confines them to the castle. Obviously they leave because, that's what they've been doing since season 1. But,
yeah. But still, it happened.
It did happen, yes. She's like, oh, you think I'm wrong? Fine, but I'm still your queen. And it's like, oh, no. You never want to be the person saying that. Essentially, she goes off on her own because everyone else is kind of like, oh, I don't know if we should do this. She's like, well, I do. We're going to do it. And she goes off and talks to the AI, and the AI is like, oh, yes. In order to do that thing you want to do and not me, you just need to do this one little thing. And she's like, great, I'll do that. And lo and behold, the minute she does that, the planet-killing weapon gets activated. And basically, while this parallel arc is happening, Adora's off doing the actual plot and heroically sacrificing everything by shattering the sword to prevent the weapon from activating. It's very cool and very emotional, but I'm focusing on the parallel arcs right now, so that's a story for another time. Glimmer only realizes when the weapon starts activating that, oh no, Adora was right. The AI used me. I can't believe I was so blind. I have to make this right. And that sets her...
I didn't think the leopards would eat my face.
Exactly. So that sets her up for season 5 kind of not being such an emotionally loaded experience from her angle, at least. It now that she's admitted that she was wrong and realized that and like broken that little barrier, she's in a position to actually start like apologizing about things and mending fences and no longer taking her friend's concern as entirely misguided condescension. Now she's like, no, wait, they were right. I was wrong. Okay. And meanwhile, Catra's set up for the arc of climbing her way out of rock bottom, having gotten everything she wanted and then losing it and not having been satisfied at either turn of events. They're both set up to essentially have very different arcs in season 5, and then they end up alone together on Horde Prime's flagship, with nobody to rely on but each other, which is just such a good setup for season 5. And all this also primes us to accept Catra having a redemption arc in season 5, which is very
wow.
cool. Yeah. Because it was I
guess that's fair, because if you bring two characters to the same point, one of whom is a good guy and is expected to claw their way back up to being good again, you're not starting from any worse of a position for the bad guy to have that redemption arc and become good, except not again this time. So yeah, that's a really cool way to go about it.
It is, and also because Catra had that self-awareness that Glimmer didn't, we're already primed to be like, oh yeah, if Glimmer can get out of this, and she can, we know she can, she's a good guy, then Catra absolutely can. She just needs to essentially finally let her desire to have actual good things and happiness in her life outweigh her self-destructive tendencies. And she's already starting to get there, which is such a clever way to prime the audience to accept something that one season before I assumed was never going to happen. Because at the end of season 3, she willingly throws the switch and starts something that's basically going to consume the entire planet in this weird half-reality. And that's the situation that ends up leading to Glimmer's mom. She's not dead, but she's functionally dead. She's trapped between dimensions or something. She has to sacrifice herself to undo that. And I was like, this is the turning point that takes this character from annoying rival to true villain. And then they pulled the rug out from under me by having it be like, hey, you know what's bad for your mental health? Doing that. Yeah, that's the basic rundown I have of the general parallels between their arcs and why I think they are really good, interesting writing. When you were like, which episode should I watch to illustrate this? I was like, I can't say the whole show because I'm right, but I can't say it. It's not helpful.
I think I might after I finish Castlevania, I might start with episode 1 after this.
Highly recommend.
This is really cool, and it's a great example of what you can do in a season of television, because obviously the medium of television allows you to do a lot of things within a season, between seasons, within the span of a single episode. But it's so cool to see that arc play out, specifically within the context of season 4. And see how characters can start from where they are and just progressively knock them further and further down over this one unit of TV time, the season. And then set them up for, in the next unit of TV time, to work their way out of the mess that they've thrown fully themselves into. No one else's fault but theirs. Really, really cool. And it's a good examination of the different ways in which self-isolating and self-destructive behavior can exist, because we often see the example of a character like Catra of what self-destructive behavior looks like, where, it's, character act with guilt. It's a character who's very aggressive, who pushes people away. But there are so many other types of self-insulating and self-destructive behavior that look a lot like what Glimmer does. So it shows not only two parallel character arcs, but different ways in which a form of self-destructive personality can play out, and how wildly different those can look on the surface, even though they have fundamentally the same result.
Oh yeah,
it's cool.
It's very interesting. She-Ra as a show handles a lot of self-destructive behaviors in a lot of very interesting ways. Adora is a whole video on her own, but the very short of it that's relevant to this specific thing is that Adora takes responsibility for everything, which is a very rough combination if you are also a chosen one hero type.
Yeah.
And there's also a little bit there in the way that she and Catra were raised together by Shadow Weaver, a character I didn't mention but is the absolute worst. Basically in a very standard narcissistic parent setup. If you look at it like an Ozai Zuko Azula situation, Shadow Weaver's the Ozai in this model, and Adora is the Azula. She is the favored child. She's the one that they have high hopes for, who can do no wrong, or else. And Catra is the Zuko, the one who can do no right, the one who gets blamed for everything. But also, if she does anything bad, it's more like Adora gets told, you should control her better. This is your responsibility. And also, if I punish her, that's your fault too. So it's no surprise she has a complex about this. But this kind of makes her a sponge for blame. Because she already blames herself for everything. Catra also blames her for everything. And starting in this season, Glimmer starts blaming her for everything. And as of season 3, she's gotten a little better at recognizing, like, no, actually, this isn't always my fault. I will try to fix it, but it's not always my fault that things go wrong, which is like the barest defense she has against this, because otherwise she is so vulnerable to being told that it's her fault that somebody's doing something bad because she didn't stop them. That alone is very fascinating, but the fact that both Glimmer and Catra, who are on the surface look like almost complete opposites, that they both end up finding her a very convenient, scapegoat, blame sponge, is just fascinating to me. Like, neither of these characters who have all this authority can quite accept that they're responsible for their own actions. And that is also very self-destructive behavior. I mean, Glimmer only starts climbing back out of the hole she digs when she realizes that she was wrong to do all that stuff. And Catra, same thing. Like, season 4 is not a good time for her, but the growing awareness that she's doing this, and maybe that means she can do better, is a very important step in the healing process. God, I didn't even mention Double Trouble at any point.
It's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. The only reason I would bring them up is that they spell this out for Catra in the finale. This is part of why she's so, emotionally broken at the end. Double Trouble is a shapeshifter. They're working for Catra, then they get subverted by Glimmer and work for Glimmer instead, and so descend in the ranks of the Horde for basically one glorious scene. In the forms of the various people who have left, abandoned, or betrayed her, point out that they're not the problem. Did she ever consider that she might be the problem? And the final form...
Good God.
Yeah, the final form they take is Scorpia saying, it's you drive them away, Wildcat. And it's just like, that's all it took, man. But Double Trouble is like, hey, man, listen, this is good for you in the long run, all right? Okay, I'm gonna go now. And it's just, like... It's rough medicine, but you really do need to process that sometimes you are contributing to why people keep having problems being around you, which is... such a juicy character arc for an otherwise very pastel covered and fun show with magic and princesses and really on the nose naming. I don't know, man. I wasn't expecting this at all when I started watching that.
She-Ra and the Princesses of Angst.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was... I'm looking at the timestamp.
Oh my God.
Boy, that was a good conversation. Thank you, Red, for taking us through why this show works so well and why I guess you all should watch it, myself included.
No, absolutely. It's on Netflix. You should totally do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 seasons?
Yeah, 5 seasons. And a couple of the middle seasons are half seasons. Season 3 is only 6 episodes long, so...
Gotcha.
No, it's very worthwhile. I think there's a if you're delving into it from a character perspective, there's almost infinite analytical depths to plumb. So highly recommend.
Well, as I was watching, I was noticing that truly every character on screen is demonstrating really good writing on the part of the creators of this show. It's just. It's good.
It's good.
It's good TV.
It's good TV.
It's a good story.
I hope I communicated that clearly. The middle.
Oh, I think so.
Middle half an hour of that was a bit of a blur. Definitely recommend. I think that arc, season 4, has a lot of incredibly good writing, very much worth analyzing. We still haven't figured out how to wind down these episodes, in case you haven't noticed.
Bye.